Wednesday night. Welcome to another Undressed podcast. Hello, I'm Jeremy Taylor, and welcome to Wednesday Night Undressed, the podcast that reaches into the wobbly places other podcasts dare and venture. Join our panel for a thrilling, thready, rumbustical debate where the answers are always clear, simple, and straightforward. And we'll start tonight with a serious question which has been put to us because Mr. Conroy, whose emporium we are in, where you can get everything your heart desires, refuses to wear a kilt and he wears shorts. And my question is really about underpants. Are underpants necessary? And then we have this long thing about the Americans who are listening to this podcast wear shorts underneath their trousers, as opposed to Y-fronts, which I think is very strange, but there we are.
What the hell is a Y-front?
A Y-front? I don't even...
Tidy whities.
Oh, my God.
Gotcha.
I mean, while some of us have to wear jock straps, understand that, but that isn't really what we're on about.
I think
are
there's a
we?
misconception here. Okay, Jeremy, when we proposed this question...
We proposed this question, you did?
When it was proposed, the question was, are pants really necessary? Now, in the United States, pants does not equate to underpants.
So, my theory...
But I think underpants is a better question.
And my theory is, why do people wear underpants and not wear underpants? I think it has to do with the weenus. Truly, if you're cut or uncut.
Really?
I do
We're
believe.
ignoring half of the human population.
Well, I mean, I don't know the reasons why you guys don't wear underwear.
Well, just don't ignore them.
Okay, I'm interested to know what if you're, or not.
I am, and I have not worn underwear before, and it's very uncomfortable.
Wearing underwear?
Yeah, no, not wearing underwear is uncomfortable.
Prove it. No.
Oh,
okay.
put that thing away!
So I think the anteater protects from the zipper.
Okay.
And rub it. That's what I think. That skin's pretty tough.
I'm interested to know. I want to ask Count Ivanov. Count, do you feel that whether or not one's penis is cut or uncut determines whether or not one should wear shorts or Y-fronts? I'm thinking from a Bulgarian point of view.
Why would that matter?
All right, let me break it down.
Yeah.
I stupidly thought we should open with a lighthearted question, so I posed the question, are pants really necessary? Somehow, in the game of telephone that occurs before the show started, Jeremy translated that to, are underpants really necessary? And so from there, Josh has elaborated that he thinks that your circumcision level is indicative of whether or not underwear is necessary.
Hey, do you guys remember no, seriously.
Here we go.
Remember that place?
Now we're talking.
No, there was a bar. Neil probably remembers it in Lawrence.
Night Owl.
Clothing was optional. Sweet. And so it was. They invited.
God, I hope it was warmer than here.
Yeah, they invited people to go there completely naked. And it was like one of the worst ideas ever. There was usually, everybody was dressed except one like really weird old guy wearing nothing. And nobody would sit on that chair, anymore ever. So that was like that idea really fell apart really fast. Also, do you remember the 1970s? I'm going to take
Not
you
really.
back. 1970s, late 70s, early,
More,
really.
yes, late 70s, I remember.
But
the late
even
70s.
up to the early 80s until the Michigan, University of Michigan Fab 5 showed
That's
up on
90s.
the horizon.
That's early 90s, by the way.
Early 90s, late 80s, when they really went to the big baggy shorts.
I do.
But before that, the basketball players, this was the worst idea ever. I mean, they were wearing these tidy whities, and like
The
Moses.
best era of basketball
Yes.
ever.
But do you not
that's
remember
when-
what I wear in the summer? She
Yeah.
comments it every time I wear my
But
shorts
this-
here. She's like, put shorts.
Yeah, but this is basically, this was, but this era in sports and basketball was basically when you could tell which religions the players
And you
belong
had
to.
more
I
women
know.
watching those games than you do now.
True.
Yeah, and it was like people needed psychological help. Basketball players, after having Moses Malone jump for a rebound in their face.
Was that the guy that knocked someone out without using his hands?
I mean, it was really.
It's a different kind
What
of
do you think of
foul
that?
to be called. Yeah.
It was really, really dark times. So yeah, I don't know.
But those are silky and soft, so it wouldn't matter if you're cut or uncut because it's smooth. Remember those short sleeves? They're smooth,
Yeah,
not like jeans.
I don't.
On the inside.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
smooth.
Probably
When I was a
not.
little boy at boarding school, there was a guy who had to go and see matron because he got caught in his zip.
Exactly.
Oh,
Holy
terrible.
shit! Did he scream? And I remember,
terrible.
I remember we would have been 10 or something like that, and he went to the matron, and I remember going with him. A couple of us went, right, because
Out
he
of
was in a
morbid
lot
curiosity?
of pain. Yes.
Somebody's got to be there to laugh.
And matron had an assistant who was probably, say, 23 or something, trainee teacher. And I remember her saying, "You can deal with this," and walked off into another room. I can remember it happening now. And this poor girl had to.
there was a time.
I don't know how she did it
Speaking-
either.
I still don't. What does
I don't know. I mean,
mean?
it's, yes.
Yeah, unzip,
Yeah.
deal with
This
it.
I
was
thought I
like,
didn't realize they had zippers in the UK. I still thought it was eyelets and
No,
buttons.
no.
You know,
No?
that's like there's something about Mary. Remember the famous
yeah.
scene.
Got a
But
bleeder.
speaking
Oh,
of
yeah.
unexpected injuries like this, there was like in the late 80s, early 90s in Bulgaria, there was this like huge push towards complete like not sexual revolution, I don't know, because the communism we had it for so long that suddenly there were so many like striptease clubs and porn clubs and like people really were kind of, I don't know what the word is. All barriers came down, So the
Uninhibited
beaches,
now.
yeah, completely uninhibited.
Physical barriers?
The beaches, no, the beaches in
bitches.
hands fencing.
The bitches.
The bitches and the beaches. on the beaches, it was completely optional to wear a swimsuit for men and women. And really, I remember it was, what was the name of this beach? It was not a very crowded beach, but at some point I looked around and really nobody was wearing anything. And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm not going to wear anything. So I sunbathed stupidly with nothing on. And this is the worst idea you can imagine.
Bad idea.
And especially if you're at the Black Sea, Louis has been at the Black Sea and knows there's a lot of just a lot of women around, a lot of, and if you're young and you get excited and you have a sunburn there, it is horrific. It is horrible.
You've got to dig a little hole and then lie in your tummy, haven't you?
But then the sunburn, that doesn't help the sunburn. No.
Your ass gets sunburned.
Can I just interrupt your story to say that my experience at the Black Sea is nothing like what Ivo described? When I was in Bulgaria, it rained the entire month
true.
that I was there. And so when we went to the Black Sea, there were only 60-year-old Norwegians.
Norwegians and Germans,
Yeah.
But we went really early. It was like late May. So people were not yet out there. But still, you and Bobby were very, very horny.
Yes.
I remember.
I wasn't married yet. I can say
Yeah,
that.
Okay.
very horny, and
know each other a long time.
and we went to the Black Sea like after 3 weeks of them walking around Sofia, going to clubs, rubbing, against beautiful women, dancing and stuff, and finally we went to the Black Sea. And we're staying, and I mean the guys are just horny as hell. And we're staying at on this island. We ended up staying on this island
And
in
when you
an
say guys, you
old.
mean you're the guys you're hanging out with.
Yeah,
Me and my buddy Bubby,
And
yeah.
we're staying in this island in an old medieval house, and all night long there's these seagulls going, oh, oh, oh. That was the song they were making all night long.
Good times. Good times.
Didn't help the conditions.
No, did not help
no.
the condition.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness
Let's
gracious.
introduce the team for tonight. Of course, we have Dr. Orlando's with us.
Yo.
Dame Kathleen's with
Hello.
us. Just Josh is with us. Count Ivanov has made an appearance. And I'm Jeremy Taylor. And we want to start with a slightly more serious question, which I'm keen to get dealt with, and that is, are we unreasonably nervous about the cloud? Do we trust technology in general? I recently was a very good boy. I've been backing up my computer and doing all the things I've been told I should do, and then the backup decided to die. So engineers turned up and they say, well, what you're worried about is on the cloud. Sorry? What you're worried about is on the cloud. I'm sorry? What are you worried about? It's on the cloud. What cloud? What are you talking about? Dr. Orlando.
So I'm the tech guy on the show. I've worked in technology for...
And that did not sound like you at all.
No, it wasn't him.
I am growing more and more nervous about the cloud, about the lack of ownership that we have with our stuff. Mm-hmm. It's handy as all hell, but there is something to be said for maintaining control over your information.
Yeah. Who owns the stuff that goes into the cloud, the pictures and so on? Who owns
It
that?
varies. It varies. There are some services that you can use that claim ownership over anything that you add to their data stores.
Like Facebook.
Yeah. There are organizations that allow you to make that don't question your ownership of the material. They are merely the conduit or the storage facility for your stuff. That's usually the model. So if I have my tax returns saved on box.com, in theory, it is my information that they are serving as a repository for. And there's arguments over who owns, or not who owns, but like we know that the telecom companies own the highways that your data transfers over, and you know whether or not they should have access to it, or the government should have access to it, either when it's being transferred or when it's being stored, or even at your house. Like these are all sort of like ownership or privacy questions.
Right.
But the question that's not really being asked is what happens when that data gets free? What happens if that data is lost? Mm-hmm. And that is the thing that is becoming more and more troublesome to me. It really wasn't troublesome when J-Law was having her pictures hacked into, because like that's everybody's favorite thing in the world. But it's super, super scary because we rely on this notion that the data that we put out there is still ours, and it's becoming increasingly obvious that even if it's ours, we're not able to control it or maintain it very well.
Sounds like you're nervous about it too.
You're not answering the question.
Yeah,
right?
he is.
Which freaking cloud does it go on?
Oh, right.
How do you know which cloud it is, and things like that?
Remember that one we saw that looked just exactly like a Scottish Terrier?
The stuff
That's
your
the one.
porno that you save in the cloud is in a really dark cloud.
Oh, yeah.
All your light material, all your fun stuff is in a wide cloud.
Mm-hmm. Porn on the Cloud is a great name for a rock band. Porn on the Cloud.
Porn in the cloud.
Porn in the Cloud.
Porn in the cloud.
Porn in the
I
Cloud.
don't know that would satisfy as a rock band or a porn title.
Porn
No,
in the
I don't
Cloud.
like it.
Yeah.
You don't like it, Porn in the Cloud?
What do you think, Count?
It's no explosions.
About clouds.
It's you basically we have lost the like Lewis said, the ownership of physical items, and have surrendered it to ones and zeros somewhere on a faraway server. So photographs and photo albums that we collected and kept like one of the most prized and cherished things in the house are no longer around. They're somewhere they're still on a computer. It's just not the computer in your house. They're on a computer somewhere else. So like, let's say Subtropolis in Kansas City, there's a giant facility underneath Kansas City in the caves, in limestone caves, and a lot of the companies that are renting this space, that are paying Hunt Enterprises to rent space there, are cloud companies. Those are just computers that are stored there because they don't need to pay for humidity control and temperature control. So maybe your pictures are there, or maybe they're somewhere in Connecticut or Arizona or China, or Wichita. Who knows? But they're still computers, and if you think that they're safe, because if your house burns, your albums are not going to burn, well, this facility can burn too, and they can disappear as well. I feel nervous enough that I have several copies in different formats of the most prized stuff that I have, like pictures. I actually have some printed pictures that I really care about that I keep in an album. And also I have them on a disc, on an old-fashioned CD. I have them on in the cloud, and I have them on my computer or several computers. So
you see, you did it again. You said, I have them in, and then the next word that came after in was the cloud, which fucking cloud.
Well, in this case, Shutterfly is my preferred one. Shutterfly.com is a cloud service where you store pictures and videos. So Box is another one that I use. So different. I mean, Facebook is basically a cloud service for your digital data.
Dame Kathleen, do you have anything to add to this?
Nah. I would recommend printing out pictures you want to keep and keep them. And then for your convenience, use whatever cloud service you want.
Yeah.
But
if you have like naked
you want to
pictures
bring
of
out
yourself,
an album and look at it, there's nothing like having an album.
If you have a naked pictures of yourself, like which a lot of people do, I wouldn't recommend you putting them in the cloud. What happens with the cloud, just like an atmospheric cloud, it eventually turns to droplets of water and falls down. And that's what happens to your porn picture, to your naked pictures. They will, just like J-Lo, they will turn into tiny droplets of data and fall down on the earth, and everybody will be drinking.
No, it is in fact.
Sorry for the stupid metaphor.
It is in fact funny you should say that. Actually,
Yeah.
it's funny you should say that because I did for a long time have a photograph of my lovely wife naked in the bath.
Yeah.
Right. For a long time, I had this photograph.
Luckily.
of her
Which
in
cloud?
the bath,
Covered by lots
in
and
a
lots of
bath.
bubbles.
Covered in bubbles, right?
Yeah.
And she's sitting there, and because she
You have to presume the
accidentally
naked bit.
put some I don't know, foam bath or something in a foaming bath,
Yeah.
And
If they're going to have a jacuzzi bath in a hotel
Yeah.
where you're staying, they really shouldn't put bubble bath containers right next to it, right?
That's probably not the
anyway,
best.
and so
Well, they did.
So I've not been able to find that photograph. Isn't that a funny thing? I used to have that photograph, and I bring it out every now and then, Christmas lunch, times like that, what you do.
Stored it on the cloud.
And yeah, and I guess if I'd had it on a cloud, maybe it would have rained and we got it back or something like that.
Yeah.
Tell me, is Leader Pelosi undoing Trump? It may seem kind of obvious
I
now,
thought you were still
but,
going with bubble bath pictures, and so I hope not.
not a Pelosi. Maybe this should be what we can expect from Trump. In other words, is the election of folks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez Ocasio?
Yeah. Beautiful, smart Puerto Rican woman.
She the one from Hawaii?
Puerto Rico. She's amazing.
You got photographs
she's
in the
from New
cloud of her.
England.
I
Somewhere.
don't, but I really
Have
am
you
impressed with
googled?
her.
Have you googled Alexandria
don't even talk about her.
Ocasio-Cortez, AOC.
No.
CORT?
Oh, I know everything about her because
Have
she's
you-
amazing.
What happens if you put in naked?
I don't know.
She is amazing, but she's also not experienced enough to run for president yet.
Is she the face?
I mean,
Is
we've just had somebody with no experience.
She's far
So
more
are we
experienced
gonna-
than that Duffus.
Sure, but that's still not experienced enough. I mean, you need
Obama
to
was a junior senator or whatever before he
He
became
had been for
president.
2 years.
Yeah.
The point is the election of folks like Alexandria the new progressive direction of the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Because
It was-
apparently there are going to be 300 Democratic congresswomen and a number of senators. So there's going to be at least 473 people standing
Yeah.
for the Democratic primaries. All of whom are quite certain they can be president.
The funny thing about this is, I posted this question to Jeremy immediately after last episode's podcast, when we all sat around this table and disagreed with you, Kath, about whether or not the Democrats were going to be able to weather this shutdown. And so, you were the only person at the table that said, no, the Democrats are going to do this. And all of us said, nah, Trump's way too much of a bastard to ever give it.
You're acknowledging my genius. Excellent. Finally.
Tyler the Great is here.
Curious. So that was the first part of the question.
Yeah.
Is Pelosi literally just undoing him? And this was asked before the shutdown was over. So I'm going to ask the question again, even though we talked about this last week. Do you really think that it was just the ratings? Or what was it, do you think, that ultimately made Trump fall apart?
It was ultimately the splintering of the Republican support.
Okay.
Yes, yes, absolutely. There was multiple reports of consistent senatorial pressure from the GOP on Donald Trump, constant, to a point where they told him, you have to do it
He
or
couldn't
else.
maintain that position.
So, yeah, and this was and I agree, Lewis asked us this question, and most of us went with the belief that the Democrats are going to fold. And this is based on history and on the fact that the Democratic Party is the party of compromise. They are traditionally known as the
And
party
I
of
love
compromise.
Pelosi's answer to questions about the wall. Have I not been clear? Have I not been clear about the wall? She just avoids
while
putting
we
in.
order some drinkies.
We don't have to take a break. We can keep going. You just order your drink.
That's water. Coach.
I'll take a Coors Light.
Did you want to draw?
Yeah, I'll do.
Big
A very bad artist.
I get an Angry Orchard and a water.
What's an Angry Orchard?
It's a cider.
It's an apple cider.
Oh.
No.
Can I do a single tall bourbon and Coke?
I would like a coffee with some milk and sugar.
Regular.
Regular ordinary coffee with some, but I'd like milk. Caffeinated. Kathleen, do you need another?
No, I don't.
Okay, so we can get on back to
Okay.
naked pictures of Leader Pelosi.
No, Pelosi.
Pelosi.
Sorry, was that not what we were talking about? Or
maybe.
I was asleep.
But yeah, it's interesting that the Democrats have discovered their spine, and they stood up to the bully. The classic game theory, game of attrition. The what was it called? The chicken. The game of chicken.
Yeah. Who's going to cry
I want to
first
be a
in the
chicken.
first-
Yeah. Fly
Who's
like
gonna
other
swerve?
chickens.
They're
Yeah.
in two vehicles flying
yeah.
towards each other. Who's gonna swerve first?
And luckily they chose not to both
Well, see,
die.
I felt like this is according to game theory. There's four possible exits of this situation, and I felt like the only person that's dumb enough not to swerve was Trump, especially after he basically took the wheel of the car that he was driving towards the other car, took it off and started waving it through the through the side window, and I felt there's no way he's gonna swerve because he's just an idiot. But apparently they were better prepared. Also, there was a third player in this game theory scenario. There was a third player, which was the voters. And they basically, looking at the ratings of the two sides involved in this game of attrition, the voters started weighing much heavier on one side. So I felt like this kind of influenced the exit of the situation, and also obviously. Obviously Nancy Pelosi was really, really tough. So it felt like when they came out and did that public announcement with Schumer, didn't they remind you of the couple from the American Gothic? They were freaky.
No.
So, yeah.
So what's going to happen on February 15th?
Yeah, it's
2 weeks from now. Who cares?
I
Okay,
mean-
that's your official position on this.
well, the president cannot really plan. He's fuzzy on things like
Everything?
on things like object
Spelling.
permanence, object permanence.
Capital letters.
He doesn't understand object permanence. So when something exits
He
the
wrote
room,
hamburgers.
he doesn't. He doesn't believe it exists.
Yeah.
If it's not in his immediate environment, he doesn't. He's not sure if it's still there. You're talking about 2 weeks. This requires prognosis, abstract thinking,
Yeah.
building a model of the future. That's too far beyond. So I don't know what's going to happen in 2 weeks. Obviously he was influenced, and that was another part of that game of chicken. Also was the outside influence of the media characters like Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter. So it's all unpredictable. Right now, people are calling him the pundits. The far-right pundits are calling him the biggest wuss in the history of America and blah, blah, blah. And he's listening to all this. And there's nothing more vulnerable than his ego. So...
Is he still taking Kofifi?
Kofefe?
Yeah.
No, he's replaced it with hamburgers.
Right.
He's
Just
now
wonder.
munching hamburgers.
Kath, what do you think's going to happen?
I think he's going to want to declare a national emergency, and they might not be able to talk him out of that.
Right.
And it'll go to courts and very quick order be shut down again.
Yeah,
I
but-
mean, no, the government. I think the government would be reopened because they would say you can't declare a national emergency over something that obviously isn't.
Who's going to make that call? Is it the Supreme Court or is it Congress? I'm asking. I don't know. I feel like I should.
I wish I don't know enough of the procedural steps.
But this is a
required.
cop-out. This is a cop-out. National emergency is a cop-out because he's not going to get the funding because it immediately is going to get challenged in court, in federal court, and it's going to get protracted for years and years until he's hopefully no longer president. So this is a cop-out. He's not really going to get the funding. He knows it. It's just a way for saving face and saying, see, I did my best, but the Democrats are suing, and that's why it's not happening. So he's pandering to his base, saying, hey, I did what I was supposed to do. So that's what's going to happen. I agree.
On the
He's
other
gonna
hand, he
declare
may
it.
declare a national emergency because he's managed to fuck up Venezuela, okay, and then use the opportunity, completely ignore Venezuela after that, and use the opportunity to steal money from the military to build his stupid wall. That could happen too. I don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. I wish I did.
See, that's the scary thing for me. He is such a wild card that it's impossible to say whether or not he will just simply buck everybody's advice and do what he wants
Whatever
to do.
the agreement is, it's going to be that there will be increased border protection measures, right? But there will be something in there saying, we are not building a goddamn wall.
Right.
Almost in those words. All right? And so he won't have it.
Gotcha.
But I don't know how the Republicans are going to be able to square that with their voters again.
This is the first time he's discovering that we have co-equal branches of government. Until now, he had no idea.
Yeah.
He really didn't know that they're co-equal. He felt like he's the king.
He still doesn't know the meaning of co-equal.
Yeah, he's starting.
No,
he's
it's
starting
three
to understand
syllables.
No, but he's starting to understand that he does not have the ultimate executive power over everything, and he's going to be checked. And this is it. He's now aware. He did not.
His
he had
head
the
might
House on his
explode.
side. He had basically tamed the Republicans to do whatever he says, and that's no longer the case. So
So when are the Republicans going to find some spine?
Oh,
They don't need to fund Spun. This is my
They're
issue.
getting tax cuts.
Yeah, they're getting
Abortion.
Not all of them, only the really rich ones.
Yeah, but they're getting what the party has established is the priority for them. They're moving forward on. Like, they've gotten the tax cuts. They're filling the federal judiciary. I mean, what else do they have to do? Why would they ever have to grow a spine at this point?
I saw an advertisement the other day on TV saying it was by the GOP, an advertisement on CNN, of all places, saying that we are setting records for appointing federal judges. More federal judges have been appointed in the last 2 years than in the history of the country.
And they don't point out that's because they refuse to appoint anybody for the previous 8 years.
Have to. That's the beauty of what they're doing right now. They are quite literally undermining the possibility of changing some of the policies that they're putting into place now for the next 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And they're doing it all by while hiding under the fact that we're trying to figure out whether or not Trump let hookers pee on him.
So they're all complicit in just completely destroying the democracy in the United States.
It was an interesting.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
It was an interesting advertisement because the purpose of the advertisement was, at the end, they said, now we are setting records because we are appointing judges. They're conservative and they're going to apply the rules of the law the way they were meant by the Constitution.
No, they were meant by the rich people.
Do not allow obstructionist Democrats to slow down this process. They're trying to do everything in their power and write to your senator and your congressman and make sure that these people are appointed. So that was the purpose of this ad, which was a lot of money. It was a 1-minute ad, and they're running it non-stop. So they're accomplishing what they need. They're interested in tax cuts. They're interested in destroying the social programs. They're interested in federal judges, fortifying their power for 10, 12, 30, 40 years. They're accomplishing this. They don't want boys kissing boys. They're accomplishing this, So little by little, they're accomplishing their agenda, and they don't
girls
care
kissing
about
girls as long as they can watch.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not worried about Trump.
Yeah.
They're not worried about Trump and the fact that he doesn't talk, that he can't talk, or he's idiot. They don't care. Their agenda is being accomplished. That's what's important.
Depressing.
Josh.
So, I think,
Are we still on the cloud?
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that what the Republicans truly don't understand, because they're so money hungry, is eventually when you don't have the people making the money for them, they eventually crash too. I mean, eventually it all comes tumbling down when you continue to cut out the people that do the work for you. Mm-hmm. That happened in 29.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got
eventually it will go away.
I got a slightly different take. Like the ultra rich, and that's who we're talking about. The ultra rich, they aren't going to be affected. And it is literally a case of let the world burn because I'm taken care of. And I think that what you're talking about will happen at some point in the future, but maybe not in the lifetime of the people that we're talking about.
But the great thing about it all, as we watch it happen, is everybody dies. Everybody
yourself,
dies.
man.
And eventually, those fucks die too. We're all going to die.
Except for Chuck Norris.
Except for fucking Chuck Norris, man.
Let's take this across to Coach Tyler and ask him, as probably the youngest person on the panel, communism in the way that Chairman Mao knew it doesn't exist anymore. The Chinese live in skyscrapers and have very westernized life. So do many people in Moscow and St. Petersburg and places like that. Cuba has an amazing healthcare system, doesn't work as a communist country, but clearly could work very well as a capitalist holiday resort. These things only last for 30 years, 50 years. Do you take the view that when you get to be an old fart like me, we'll be looking at something completely different? Or do you think it will be that there will be statues of the late President Trump and a mausoleum?
You mean Emperor
to
Trump?
Emperor Trump, whatever.
Yes.
Or do you? Here's the thing. Or do you think it'll all be over and done with in 6 years' time, max? Or do you not think about it at all? Which is really the more serious question.
If you would have asked me that last year, I probably would have said that I wouldn't care. But more recently, the good side of peer pressure of your friends getting you out there to vote, your friends getting you to realize these issues has helped a lot. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of progress right now, even with what happened at the midterms. And I think we're heading in the right direction. I don't know. As long as people still see people like Trump being able to be elected into our government, I don't know if it'll ever go away, but it may be hindered. It may be less supported, hopefully. Yes.
So you said
Orlando.
something.
Dr. Orlando.
That was interesting in that you said you feel like we are moving in the right direction. I'm assuming you're referring to the results of the midterm?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the only reason I said it is because immediately after the shutdown, like the first news story that I read is that 69% of the country thinks we're headed in the wrong way. And it's like... It's never made clear in the headline that this is a poll that was taken prior to the midterms.
Right.
That people have thought that the country's moving in the wrong direction for a long time. So I just wanted to make sure that you were not saying you think Trump's moving the country in the right direction.
No.
Okay.
No.
It's very interesting.
It depends on how you view that question, right?
Right, yeah.
Because he could be moving us in the right direction in the sense that we're actually standing up, we're voting, we're thinking about things differently
Right.
than being numb and stupid like we have been for the last 12 fucking years.
Yeah.
You know, the last Avengers movie was very interesting because, it's all related to this. Because,
I know exactly where you're going. Keep going.
Because the villain, because of the brilliant villain Thanos, his whole thing was about finding balance in the universe, balancing the forces in the universe. Because once the universe is off balance, everything falls apart. What were the Republicans thinking? You know, in nature, things always find a way to balance themselves out. Equilibrium is there, and there's entropy, yes, but things really find a way to balance themselves out. So what were the Republicans thinking when they went with the Tea Party madness, with the Freedom Caucus, with Donald Trump? This is extreme, wild, nuts right, to a degree that was unimaginable. And what were they expecting? That there forever will be centrist Democrats? That there's not going to be democratic socialists? That there's not going to be justice Democrats? This is the opposite force of the Freedom Caucus, and it exists. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a function of the Tea Party, and they can only blame themselves if that 70% tax is imposed on the richest of the rich. They only have to blame themselves, because you go to one extreme, you will get the other extreme. That's why I don't like extremes. I don't like extreme dieting. I don't like extreme workouts. I don't, you
Extreme
What
gotta...
underpants.
about
Yeah, you gotta
extreme
find
burritos.
not even but
then it comes out extreme the other end.
You gotta find moderation, and your life will be okay. You have to find equilibrium and balance, and we are off balance with the extreme right, so we were gonna get the extreme left. Long live Thanos.
Dr. Orlando, you clearly would like to pontificate a bit more on this.
Two things. First of all, the balance argument is a little bit spurious because Vader was the one that brought that balance to the Force by killing all the Jedi.
That's true.
So,
that is true.
balance is maybe a scary concept.
Yeah.
Because
Not
that
all of them.
that all of a sudden puts Trump in
The
the
Force.
role of Vader. Anyway,
Or Emperor.
or the Emperor. No, that would be Putin.
Do it.
Good call. But Kath, the other reason that I posed this question was to talk about specifically the 70% marginal tax rate that is being bandied about right now.
Don't forget to say the marginal tax rate, not just
Oh, yeah,
as you
yeah.
said 70% tax rate.
Yes,
it's
yes.
70% on
Oh,
earnings above
above
what
$10 million.
anybody can possibly use.
That's what Bernie Sanders, aka Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Wasn't the first.
Somebody who's making $10 million a year doesn't need anything that extra 70% of the stuff above it is going to buy him. He's not lacking for, spaghetti.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just crazy that billionaires are coming out there and saying, oh, well, the country can't afford this. They mean is,
I can't
I
afford
will have a few less zeros after my net worth. Oh, my God.
So here's my question, though. Like, we didn't hear anything about this prior to AOC. I mean, we're hearing about it now because AOC is the...
Well, I think actually Warren has a much more sensible proposition. A wealth tax.
And my I guess ultimately the question is, do you feel, and I'm most interested in your opinion, because you're smarter than everybody here, if
true.
The Democratic Party is actually making this left progressive kind of shift right now, do you really think it is?
It's opened up more to left ideas than it was before, because people have been so hit in the face with the self-satisfied fat guys, that are just pushing people's faces in the mud, that they're really fed up. So they're open to that.
Right.
But I don't think we want to go with untried people. I think we need to go with people who have experience in financial matters and in policy and know what could work and what the ramifications are.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's move on to...
Wait a second. What was the name of the actress that was in the Star Wars movie?
Oprah.
No, Oprah was in it, but no, the tall woman. It was in the new Star Wars.
Jar Jar Banks?
No,
Jar Jar
Captain
Binks.
Phasma.
Phasma, yes, Captain Phasma.
She's
I
a
can't
comic.
remember her name.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Doesn't she?
fucking movie was terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
So, God,
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern.
Sorry.
Right?
No. He's
No,
talking
no.
about Phasma. He's talking about Phasma.
Yeah.
But,
No, but I'm talking about Laura Dern.
Seriously, what was wrong with that
terrible.
movie?
It was all the fucking women in power. That's what fucking tore that movie to pieces.
Kick
Which
you again.
movie, though?
This is a piece of shit.
will kick you.
Because all the women were fucking like...
That was so not
she
what I was
like floating
expecting.
in space. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a piece of shit.
Now, we do try when we're recording Wednesday Night Undress not to be too current with our stories, but I thought it might be interesting to ask the panel what stories they're following. For instance,
People will be
what-
interested when we put this podcast up in a year and a half from now to look back at the past and what was on our mind.
So
at
the
that
story
point.
that I'm interested in is Robert Bolton, U.S. ambassador, turning up to a press conference with a notepad, very clearly written on the notepad, 5,000 troops moving from Afghanistan across to South America. And question mark, and it's written in such a way. It's the old thing of when they wanted to get information out from the, number 10 in England, ministers would appear and they'd have the pad and they'd have what they wanted the press to find out on the pad, so the media could film the pad. And they would be able
So
to
you
leak.
think he did that on purpose?
Yes, I think he did it on purpose. And that is the story that I'm following, because I think that is going to give Trump his excuse
It's a
to
good
come to
story.
a real national emergency, i.e. we're sending troops into harm's way,
Yeah.
where they are going to get killed. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like
And
Afghanistan.
he's going to use that
where-
as an excuse to take money from the military?
It's not.
He's got a hell of a nerve.
You know,
It's not about building a wall. It's about sending American troops into real harm's way in Afghanistan or in
Venezuela.
Iraq. They may get shot at. They may get killed. If you put them into Venezuela, then it could be another Vietnam, which could lead us to a national emergency, which could lead us not to a war, which I actually think Trump doesn't care that much about. What I think is he wants a national emergency so that he can delay an election. That's the story I'm following. Dr. Orlando, what are you following?
Game of Thrones comes out April 29th.
By the way,
not near as
guys,
exciting as this.
I gotta tell you, when speaking of this, I have this stupid feature on my car, on my Murano. I have a Nissan Murano, and there's a button that I've never pushed on it.
Shit. Did you push it?
I pushed it because I discovered.
Did a naked lady come out?
No. Get this. I have like many meaningless features on the Murano, but this one is ridiculous. This button heats up your steering wheel. Your steering wheel gets hot. And I thought it was the stupidest feature
Range Rover
until
had that.
today. Until fucking today. It was freaking ridiculous outside. And I'm saying this, it was minus 2 degrees. And I'm saying this because Louis mentioned Game of Thrones. And I looked outside this morning. I felt like there were a couple of White Walkers outside on the lawn. So yeah, this was valuable.
Tell me something. Which cost more? The button for your heated steering wheel or a pair of gloves?
Yeah, I agree. It's dumb. But
Okay, I just wondered.
I gotta say, this morning, like 7 o'clock in the morning, it's dark and freezing outside. It's like polar vortex shit. And I put my hands on the wheel and it was warm. It was nice. One time every 10 years.
It's the Bulgarian thing. You like to
God, I
grasp
hate
something
cars.
warm. Let's go to Josh and see if he can actually answer the question.
There was a question?
The question was, what story, international story, or national story, are you following right now? That's
I'm sorry,
nothing
am I
do
to
with Trump.
assume that my story was not sufficiently newsworthy?
What is Game of Thrones?
Oh,
God!
It's foreign policy. It's everything you need to know about foreign policy.
Well, I don't know the name of the
It's-
film that Trump was using to talk about immigration. Let's stick
the
with
wall.
Josh.
It's the
Josh,
wall and the dragon
Josh,
and Cold
what-
War.
Josh, what are you following? What story are you interested in the media right now?
I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I get all my news from you.
That's a good source.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to
Or
follow
You decide.
the 5,000 troops.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow some Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I'm going to follow some naked Bulgarians on the
Yes.
Black Sea.
Yes, exactly.
See what they have in their ass.
You know,
I don't know.
You know, I was going to say about Venezuela and the troops real fast that actually the troops themselves will be more than happy to go to Venezuela because no other country in the history of the world has sent more contestants to Miss Universe pageants than Venezuela. So I feel like the troops will be more than happy to be in Venezuela. On the serious note, it's a clusterfuck. Venezuela is dangerous. It's a giant country, first of all.
Yeah, huge.
It's extremely. When you mentioned Vietnam, I had like horrible visions because this country is so dense with jungle, very hard terrain. It has like something like 30 million people. It's a massive country, and another thing came across my mind when you mentioned Venezuela was in Catch 22 there was a character, an Indian Native American, and he had a curse basically wherever he went and settled. It doesn't matter where it is. It might be in freaking Tonganoxie, it might be in Sofia, Bulgaria, it might anywhere. Wherever he settled for more than a day, there was oil underneath him. And the government quickly found out, so they were basically following him, and wherever he settled, they would kick him out and dig and get oil. We go where the oil is. Venezuela is one of the founding members of OPEC. They're loaded with oil. Do you know how much? And I'm saying this because I have a friend that lived in Venezuela. At the gas pump in Venezuela, you pay 3 cents a gallon. 3 cents a gallon. That's how much oil. They're low. They have more oil than Saudi Arabia, and it's heavily subsidized. It's a disastrous country in every other way, but they are loaded with oil. So we will go there because there's resources for us there.
Gold,
we will
too.
gladly leave Afghanistan that has nothing but heroin and go and get
I'm sorry, nothing but. Excuse me. Back up.
Heroin is delicious.
That's probably why we're there. But
And they do not wear underpants. That's another. Going back to
you
the
go.
beginning of the
That's
show.
a good
Yeah.
one.
Probably.
But yeah, we will go there, and it's a mess. Nicolas Maduro has Russia on his side, Turkey on his side. That's the second biggest army in NATO is Turkey. He's got a lot of supporters, and we are on the opposite side propping his opponent. And I don't want to see us in a war in Venezuela which can escalate into a World War III because there's so much resources there. There's so much money.
Dude, you had us at, I don't want to see us in a war.
Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting
Yeah.
thing I think about that is show of hands, who do we know who's 25 or under, male or female? Just make you think about that.
Yep. They don't need to draft people.
Selective service.
And I
Drafts
just
already
heard
here.
58% or 60% of the kids that are about to go into service age are not in shape to be able to make it through PT in the military.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Kathleen,
By the
what
time-
story are you following?
I'm
Are you
following.
interested in?
Yeah, I'm following who's going to be Mueller's next target with charges, possibly of lying
Don
to come.
Jr. and
Yes.
Kushner.
Or
Wouldn't
maybe
that
Don
be wonderful?
Sr. Don Sr. would be better.
Don Senior would be better, but I think he's going to go with Junior
Or
and
Kushner.
maybe Kushner for next.
Coach, what story are you following? This is so that we can look back in 3 or 4 shows' time. Look back and
At
see
how
what
stupid we all were. Yeah. How wrong we got it.
There was a soccer player who had recently transferred from a team in France to a team in England, and he was on a private jet, and on his way to England, his plane disappeared off the radar.
Yeah.
And
It's horrible stuff.
the weather was terrible. I mean,
Like he's lost in the La Manche.
yeah, he's
Channel.
probably down under there. But today they found washed up on somewhere in France the cushions possibly to his jet. So they are now going and excavating, I guess, the floor of the ocean to see if they can find it. But it was just a sad moment.
He was Argentinian, right?
Yep. Salah.
And, yeah, and he sent a tweet or a message that he's frightened that
Yeah.
the airplane
It was breaking up.
looks like he's breaking
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it
Dr.
was
Orlando,
terrible.
what are you following?
There is a hullabaloo right now about Facebook's data policies. Apple has apparently filed an injunction against them. It's looking like it's going to turn into all-out war between Apple and Facebook, and I would be very, very interested to see what happens if there is some fragmentation in the technology/social media platforms. If this has any staying power, and who's going to basically swerve in this giant game of chicken first.
So, go ahead.
I'm following the story of my own cell phone in the sense of we were joking at work the other day, and I said, if you say Toyota, you're going to start getting Toyota ads on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Which I knew would happen. So I did that. And so about 3 hours later, I start getting Toyota ads on my Instagram feed.
petrifying.
But I was in
Wow.
a meeting yesterday, and I was on my phone, and someone else said Advent Health. All of a sudden, I'm getting Advent Health
up.
on my
Because
Instagram feed.
FaceTime is bugged
got hacked,
and is
yeah.
following you. Yeah,
Yep.
It's freaking scary. Next thing, when you
Yep.
think of something, it's going to start showing
Count
up.
even off,
When you have-
leaving aside Trump, and you joined in on the Venezuela thing, are there any stories that you're following, whether they're here or in Europe? Something we haven't touched on today. Is there anything that you're following that you're interested in?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm really following everything. I'm trying to follow everything that's happening in Europe and the Brexit situation. So this is really a massive, massive clusterfuck with
No kidding.
the Theresa May and the vote of that she did not get the vote of confidence, and the Brexit deal fell apart, and so now they're at the mercy of Brussels, and they're dictating the terms of the agreement on the Brexit procedures. So I'm not sure what really is going to happen there. I feel like they desperately need a second vote because I believe that people did not understand the repercussions and the full impact of trying to exit the European Union. And I feel if they do it again, you remember that the number one Google search item after Brexit from Great Britain was, what does it mean? What does it mean exiting the European Union? So people voted against the European Union, and then they started wondering what the consequences will be. So that's something that's very interesting to me. And obviously, I'm following with kind of trepidation the situation in Hungary. And Viktor Orban, they have their own Trump in Hungary, a populist maniac and a right-wing nationalist. He kicked out Open Society Foundation and banned Soros. He's a Hungarian Jewish guy, banned him from even entering the country. And he is imposing really bizarre authoritarian policies in Hungary, and that worries the hell out of me.
Mr. Taylor, what are you following?
I think the story that I'm most interested in is part of the Brexit story, and that is what's going to happen with Northern Ireland and Ireland. You've got to remember that Northern Ireland and Ireland live on the same island.
Means not all the same place.
With an S, and the border between the two, if that becomes a hard border, i.e. there is a fence and
Enhanced
security
fencing.
and what have you.
Physical barrier.
Not a wall.
We are now, as I understand it, on the third serious bombing in Belfast. And the peace that has been there for the last 10 or 15 years, and which was started with the Northern Ireland peace process, could disappear very quickly, and that means that people are going to die, and the efforts of Kofi Annan, of President Clinton, of South African President, all sorts of people just go straight out the window. And so I think that's part of what Brussels is looking at,
Right.
because the Conservatives, rather like the Republicans here in another subject, don't seem to be able to deal with it. They just if you ask them, they don't have an answer, and that, as a Brit, worries me greatly. As always, we ask Count Ivanov to thank our sponsors.
Yes.
Could we do that tonight?
Yeah.
Really quick before you do that, go
oh.
find a book or find the TV show. Game of Thrones is awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah. Kofi Annan, by the way, is a great name for a new beverage at Starbucks. It's a fantastic. Can I have a double latte
I
Kofi
am
Annan?
not
By the way, someone just said I
getting
meant
anything from
President
Starbucks.
Mandela.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, I have the sponsors tonight. They asked me to read the copy. We are obligated contractually to read the copy for our sponsor today. Thank you, dear sponsors. We're sponsored today by Oldsmobile. Roughly twice the size of that spaceship in the opening sequence of Star Wars. The average Oldsmobile requires skillful parallel parking even on a completely empty football field. Yes, guys, Oldsmobile ceased to exist 15 years ago. But who could forget the incomparable Cutlass Supreme? Oh, inspired by the fluid elegance of a giant wooden crate of moonshine. Our sponsor would also like to remind you that on the secondary market, you can still buy the iconic Starfire convertible. Oh, which will put the wind in your hair, making you feel as if you're sitting in the middle of a topless shipping container. And don't forget the legendary Custom Cruiser 5-door station wagon with more cylinders than a geometry textbook. An exterior carefully caressed by gorgeous Norwegian oak panels. Using the same engine configuration that propelled the Gemini mission into space, the Custom Cruiser will blow away the competition, literally. If you're shopping for a car that doesn't and shouldn't exist, please consider Oldsmobile. With fuel efficiency of 4 miles per gallon. With fuel efficiency of 4 miles per gallon, you will drive 400 miles before refueling, as the tank capacity is roomy 100 gallons. We encourage you to patronize our sponsor, Oldsmobile. Why be hip when you can be a bulldozer? Who doesn't need 7.5 liters of carbon-chewing goodness? Communists, that's who. So get yourself a real car and kick some asphalt. And if you don't want it for yourself, buy it for your feisty grandma. Help her put the tank in cantankerous.
You can't keep a straight face.
Oldsmobile, because every 92-year-old lady deserves the right to reach high above her head and put her arthritic mittens on the wheel of 2 tons of havoc-wreaking metallic monstrosity. Thank you, Oldsmobile.
You've been listening to another episode of Wednesday Night Undress with Dr. Orlando, Dame Kathleen, Coach Tyler, Just Josh, and Count Ivanov. I'm Jeremy Taylor. We want to thank our engineer tonight, Neil Rasmussen, for doing the knobs. He's very good at playing with his knobs, he is. His little fingers, they play those knobs like a grand piano. Yes, they do. Thank you for listening, folks. Come back next week.